it's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gaus, joined every week by my co-hosts, Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy. And guys, things are warming up, and I'm not just talking about the weather because it has been a little bit nicer outside, at least down where I'm at. So we'll take it. But I'm talking about the countdown to the NHL trade deadline, exactly 1 week away. And while some players are worrying about being part of trade deals, other guys are thinking about extensions and their extension deals. So one player in particular that we know is hoping to lock in an extension by the deadline is Leafs forward John Tavares. So he told the media that he knows obviously the club has a lot going on right now. It's a very busy time of the year, but he'd love to get it done if the opportunity is there. If not, when the time comes, they'll get there. So what do we think from a Leafs perspective? Would it be wise for them to sign Tavares before the deadline, or should they maybe be waiting? They know he wants to be there and see what moves they make before they pull the trigger on that deal. What do we think?
Sign him now. I don't know what the wait would be. This isn't a Marner situation where I'm like, I need to see what John Tavares does in the playoffs. Like, he's a point per game guy basically this year.
Yeah, I think for me, at this point in his career, I mean, Tavares has been fantastic, especially early on this season. He was probably their best forward early on. But, you know, with the ravages of age, as we know, since Traikos and I are in our 40s, you know, Tavares is a decade younger than us. But I would like to see a 3-year contract, $5 million per year. I know that's a big haircut for him, but I will say, if the Leafs win the Stanley Cup this year, then none of this matters. But if you're signing the extension then you do have to consider it.
Banners
but
fly
if he
forever,
wants to be in town, what's that?
Banners fly forever.
Banners fly forever.
That's his go-to.
Yeah, but if he wants to be here and he wants to be part of, you know, a team that should be contending for years to come, I think he would understand, like, you know, if he's more of a role player and getting more of a role player's salary, that's probably what works for everyone.
Yeah, let's not forget, he took a quote-unquote discount the first time he signed for Toronto or with Toronto. Like, apparently he left money on the table. He could have went elsewhere and earned a little bit more. That being said, I'm kind of with you, Ryan. Like, I think if Tavares wants to be a Leaf, he's really got to have to take less than market value because, you know, at 34 years old, he'll be 35 when the next season starts.
Yeah.
There's going to be a dip eventually, whether it's this next coming season or the season after. You know, you mentioned a 3-year deal that would take him to basically age 38.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that he's not going to be a point per game player at that point, but he's such a good soldier that whether it's Toronto, whether it's like an Ottawa Senators, whether it's a Utah, like a Buffalo Sabres, there's a lot of teams looking for a John Tavares who can still be productive and is such a great locker room guy that he willingly took the C off his chest and said, Austin Matthews, you be the captain, even though I've got 1 more year left. Like, what a move that really sent to not only the Leafs organization, but I think the rest of the NHL. So, you know, he's going to get his money, and I'm kind of with you. I don't know if he has to take that much of a discount. I would think 6 to 7 million is probably still fair.
Especially with the cap going up, you know, it might balance things out maybe a little bit, but it's very clear from everything you're seeing and from what you're hearing from Tavares that he wants to stay with Toronto. All right, well, let's keep the Leafs chat going. Rumors flying around about the Leafs being interested in Blues forward Brayden Schenn. So TSN's Darren Dreger on Insider Trading said that the Leafs GM is most definitely interested in adding a veteran forward at the deadline. So is Schenn that best veteran forward for what the Leafs are looking to add? And can they pull it off? Because it's a little more complicated. He has 3 years of contract, cap hit of 6.5 a year. Do we think that he's a good fit? And is it possible?
I'm just kind of concerned about what has to go the other way. Like, does that mean that an Easton Cowan is the chip that goes the other way, or Fraser Minton? Like, if it's a Nick Robertson, I don't think anyone in Leafland is going to be concerned or say, no, don't make that move. But you know, we've heard from the Blues that, like, it's going to take basically a trade that knocks their socks off for them to consider trading Brayden Schenn. that means that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to have to take a significant piece of their prospects off the team.
For me, it's more about the salary, but I mean, Katie, as you mentioned, the cap is going up. So, I mean, let's say you get Tavares at 6, and then Brayden Schenn at 6.5. You consider Tavares making was it 10.5 right now? So you're kind of like getting Brayden Schenn in terms of cap for free. You're adding a little more, but the cap's going up, even though they are in a cap crunch. I'll be controversial here. I would be fine with a Brayden Schenn, Easton Cowan trade because I think the Leafs have enough smaller forwards already that Easton Cowan might have trouble pushing his way into the lineup in the short term, whereas maybe in St. Louis, where they're already sort of a heavier team, they could use another high skill guy to play with a Jordan Kyrou, for example. So if it took Easton Cowan, I think maybe you consider it because Brayden Schenn's a winner and he is a playoff style guy.
Yeah. If you had to consider which prospect or which asset right now the Leafs had that they'd be least willing to part with, what would you think it would be?
I think it's Cowan is probably the guy that they value the most. And after that, it's probably Fraser Minton. And then, and
they've
Nick
got that
Robertson
2026 first round pick. Is that, are they holding on to that one? What do we think?
Well, the first round pick is going to be in the 20s, the way that the Leafs season is like shaping up. So I would think Cowan's more valuable than that first round pick, in my opinion.
My only consideration would be like with the first round pick, I think this is like the second year under a new scouting regime. So with that, you have a chance to select a player that fits your organization based on again the because Wes Clark's not there anymore. He's in Pittsburgh. I think Ben Danford is up there in terms of a player that other teams are asking about. For me, I think Fraser Minton is actually the best fit in Toronto based on the game he plays. And let's face it, he's already played NHL games. I don't think that's a coincidence that he's played games and Easton Cowan struggled in training camp.
Yeah, he's more proven. So
the other thing is Brayden Schenn the best Schenn that the Leafs can acquire? Like, I still think that a Luke Schenn.
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? Like, if I'm Morgan Riley, I'm more interested in getting Luke Schenn because at least I know I've got some familiarity there. And, if the Leafs can get Morgan Riley going, I think that's a huge bonus. But yeah, to Ryan's point, why not both?
Yeah, I mean, Schenn watch in full effect. Why not? Yeah. Brothers, they've got chemistry. They're related. All right, well, how about the Winnipeg Jets? They are a full-blown wagon this season. They did have their 11-game winning streak snapped by the Nashville Predators, which was a little surprising, but they're scary good. So Winnipeg is reportedly looking for the best fit, not the biggest name at the deadline. They've got something great going, and it makes sense. They wouldn't want to mess with it by just bringing in the biggest fish. So who are some best fit type players that we could imagine the Jets being interested in?
Do the Jets ever go for the biggest fish? I'm trying to think now.
It's just not in their,
they ever been like
MO.
We're going big game hunting here. It always seems like they just get the guy. What's that?
I don't really need to.
Paul Stastny?
I guess so. That's a good pull. That's a long time ago too, Ryan.
It's true.
Ryan, what do you think?
For me, I would look at Vancouver because, the word on the street, Elliot Friedman had this, that, he was thinking like maybe a long, rangy defenseman. So if you go to the Canucks, who are struggling right now and do not look like buyers, if anything, maybe they'll be sellers. They've got two options, one more expensive than the other. So if Winnipeg is willing to, go with the bigger option, both cap-wise and size-wise, Tyler Myers is kind of intriguing. He's been playing decently for them. And if they want to do a move that's more depth, Derek Forbort, a playoff-style defenseman with a lot of size and a lot of reach. Somebody where, maybe they bump Logan Stanley down the depth chart a little bit and just really sort of fortify that top six. I think either one of those players from Vancouver would fit the bill for the Jets.
Yeah.
I know I've
Doesn't
said
get
this
rangier
name.
than Tyler Myers. That
Yeah.
guy has just got arms for days.
Well, you mentioned Tyler Myers, who obviously has familiarity in Winnipeg. I'm going to go Brayden Tanev. Started his career with the Jets, some
Right.
familiarity there. Had a 14-goal season back in the day for the Jets. I don't know if the Jets necessarily need even more depth offense, but they are a younger team. Having a Tanev there who kind of like the organization knows real well, I think it's such a low risk move. But is he a guy that's sort of not the big fish? Like it's such a weird deadline right now. Like we're going into it. Like who is the number one trade target right now? Like legitimate. I know like we've heard Rantanen could get moved and Pedersen could get moved, but I don't know if those are legit. Like even a Brock Nelson, the way that the Islanders are playing now, like is he even on the board?
Yeah. I will say though, Mike, to your point, can you imagine a Jets third line with Adam Lowry and Brayden Tanev?
Oh my
Like
God.
that would be not fun at all to play against.
Nuts.
Lowry on his own is not fun to play against.
Exactly. Yeah.
Look, Tanev is just a maniac too. I mean, the nickname Turbo, the guy can fly, but he's just not afraid to literally put his body on the line and
He is Macedonian, Katie, so it's kind of in his blood.
There you go. All right, well, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers. They have not been having fun since coming back from Four Nations. 0-4. During that span, they've scored 10 goals and allowed 21. They've also allowed the second most shots against per game in the league in that stretch. So there's factors that play into this, but is this just a little slump or are there cracks that we're seeing that are kind of a bigger picture of what could be an issue for this Oilers team in the playoffs? And are there things that maybe really still do need to be addressed at the deadline? Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, the Oilers are so weird because they have obvious problems, but then those problems go away. So if you're an Oilers fan, you just hope that they're getting it out of their system now where it doesn't matter as much as in the postseason. And those obvious ones are Stuart Skinner as the starting goaltender. We've seen him be incredible in the playoffs. We've seen him be horrible also in the playoffs. Their defense is not great. But we have seen them succeed in the past, going all the way to the game 7 of the finals. So it's tough because you don't want to overreact and you don't want to upset the apple cart too much if you're the Oilers. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're primed for the postseason. I would say the greatest worry right now is not them falling out of the playoff picture. I don't think that's even a scenario. But finding yourself in a spot where you have to play the Los Angeles Kings in the first round. Like if you're seeding first place in the Pacific to Vegas, then you're playing the Kings, and the Kings have really strong underlying numbers and are playing well right now. I know you play the Kings every year in the playoffs, but it feels like this year could be different. And that would be my concern for Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same old, same old. That's all I'm hearing from Ryan, and that's all I'm seeing from Edmonton here is like, you're telling me that Edmonton's got issues on the back end and in goal? Wow, shocking. You mean that they're kind of a roller coaster type team that could go on fire with 10 straight wins and then 10 straight losses? Shocking. This is sort of the bed that Edmonton has made. Like they're always going to live and die with their offense and with their, with the Connor McDavids and the Leon Draisaitl's. And when those guys are cooking, it really glosses over a lot of the issues that they're having right now. But, I don't know what the appetite is for trying to correct some of these problems, or even if they can be corrected. Like you're not going to remove Stuart Skinner as your goalie. That's not going to happen. And I don't know how much you can do with that defense. Like it's still like that Darnell Nurse contract is going to be sort of like a anchor around that team for however long he's signed for. So, you're really looking at it like, all right, you hope that the offense can just kind of be good enough where you get into the playoffs and Connor McDavid just takes over as we saw last year.
This could be a perfect moment though for Ryan to bring up his favorite thing, which is John Gibson.
There you go, right?
You obviously are going to ride with Skinner, but to have a guy like John Gibson hanging there and being a security blanket, I don't know if it's possible, but it certainly would make me feel better if I was an Oilers fan. But we'll see what happens. He's a little banged up right now, but he's going to be okay. All right. Well, which top team in the NHL right now that is rolling? We've talked about the Jets a little bit, but what is a team that's like one trade away at the deadline from being just flat out terrifying? Like, oh my gosh, we can't face these guys in the playoffs, please.
I mean, I'm gonna roll with Dallas.
You go west, I'll go east, right?
There you go. I'm gonna roll with Dallas. I mean,
There
this
it
is a team that I've pegged for the Stanley Cup for quite some time now. And again, they've had some injury issues, but silver lining to that comes with the potential for more cap space, and we
Yeah.
feel like the Stars could make a big move. Maybe they get Brock Nelson. Who knows? Maybe they add to that defense core with a big piece or two. But with what they already have and the depth that they have once they're healthy, I think the Stars they're kind of lurking in the weeds there, where once the playoffs roll around, you're not going to want to face them.
I agree with that.
I'm going to go a little sort of outside the box here with my East pick, because you said
Okay.
top team, and I don't know if Tampa Bay is a top team. For me, they are.
They're
Just
hot.
based on reputation.
feel like
and
it right
players
now.
they have. They're
Yeah.
playing like it now. And can you imagine if they do sort of win the trade deadline and they're the team that we're talking about after March 7th? Like that,
Yeah.
that's, Brendan Hagel, I think, opened up a lot of eyes. Like, if you didn't already know what his game was all about, you've really impressed since the Four Nations. And, they still got Vasilevsky, they still got Hedman, they still got Kucherov, Braden Point, Jake Gensel. And then if they get some big pieces at the deadline, oh boy, that's a scary team, and they could be a wild card team that you face in the first round. Like what a joy! Hey, you won your division. Now play Tampa.
Yeah, that's definitely like, it's one of those teams we've talked about. Like, it is not a reward at all to be winning anything if you're facing a team like Tampa. They're definitely scary right now. All right, well, let's talk about two teams that are wild card teams right now. They are setting us up for what could be the best NHL Stadium Series we've had in a while. So the Red Wings and the Blue Jackets facing off in Columbus, and it means a lot. They're currently tied at 66 points. They each have the 2 wild card spots in the East. But everything is so close. The margins in the East are crazy. So do we think one, both, or neither of these teams will make the playoffs? And which team in your mind needs to make a move more desperately at the deadline?
This is becoming a Sophie's Choice kind of question here. Like, the game last night was incredible. And again, we're recording this on the Friday. So the Thursday night game between Columbus and Detroit, which Columbus won, and is basically a precursor to Saturday's game, it took on even greater meaning. I love that they had to meet right before going outdoors. You're right. Most of these outdoor games are events. This one is eventful. Like, it actually does matter. We're getting right down to the nitty gritty, and I would have to say Columbus makes it, and that's maybe my heart picking it over my head, just because of the Johnny Gaudreau is in the backdrop of this team. I love that Zach Werenski has really put his name out there as an elite defenseman, as a Norris Trophy candidate. So I really hope Columbus makes it. I think this would just be a storybook ending to what was a really difficult year for them.
So true.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like only one of these two teams is going to make it, because you do have the New York Rangers lurking. The Ottawa Senators have kind of fallen back a little bit, but they're still pretty dangerous. What I would say about the Blue Jackets is that no matter what they do at the deadline, they're kind of getting a free top line center when Sean Monahan returns from his wrist injury. So you think about how well they're playing now, and then add in a guy who was fantastic for them, particularly early in the season, and has been a great mentor for Adam Fantilli. I remember talking to Fantilli about this earlier in the season when they were in Toronto. So I feel like, you have the backdrop of the Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew tragedy, but at the same time, I think it's been something that, has been kind of a rallying point for them. And it feels like, they kind of got an extra player out there every night.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, you make a great point. I think at the deadline, people always want teams to make a move, and that's fair. But sometimes you forget about things like Monahan waiting in the wings, like a player that you don't have to go out and make a move. You have someone that is you can't even buy a guy like that at the deadline, like for what he does for the team and the familiarity he already has. So certainly interesting to see. But I agree with you. I even writing this question, my gut says that not both of these guys are making it in. You don't even know. Like you said, there's so many talented teams that are still pushing with New York and Ottawa. We've talked a lot about how we want Ottawa to make it. We've talked a lot about how New York has to make it. So it'll be interesting to see. It is going to come down to the wire. All right. Well, as we continue to set the stage for the trade deadline, let's talk a little bit about future assets. And for some of the teams that are going to have to be thinking a little bit longer term here, they're not buying, they're selling. So which trade deadline seller needs to stock up on some picks here at this deadline?
I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins. They are already without their second and fourth round picks due to previous trades. And this is not a stocked pipeline to begin with, because obviously, for the past decade, Boston has been a contender. So, they haven't drafted very high. They haven't drafted very often either. And, last year they had their first rounder in Dean Letourneau, but, he is a big project center. Like, I wouldn't expect to even consider him for duty for another 4 years, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you might want something else before that. And, Matt Patra is young. Maybe Fabian Lysel's an NHLer. I don't know at this point. It's really hard to say. So I would like to see the Bruins at least have the full 7-pick complement for 2025. If they could even add more than that, I think it would be ideal.
Okay.
I will see your Boston. I know I will raise you a Pittsburgh, Ryan.
Well, they're one and the same. It feels like lately. What do we got?
I can't tell you who Pittsburgh's top prospect is. I don't even know if they've had a top prospect since like drafting like maybe Chris Letang, or maybe a Jordan Staal, like a long time ago. So if there's a team that needs to really kind of like restock the cupboards, it's Kyle Dubas's, Pittsburgh Penguins. I just don't know who they're going to be offering to get some tangible picks back. Like it seems like their hands sort of are tied going into this deadline. It's not like you're going to trade Malkin or Letang. We've heard Erik Karlsson as a potential.
Yeah.
Who did you mention?
Maybe Rickard Rakell?
Maybe. Yeah. And there's probably some value there, obviously. And just maybe because of the glut of names out there in the trade deadline, maybe Rickard Rakell gets more than he normally should based on the season he's having. But yeah, for sure, Pittsburgh needs picks, whether it's first, second, third, even seventh round.
And I know Brian Rust would be a name, but he would have to waive. I believe he has a no move. But again, he's a guy that he has a versatile game. I think he could be impactful somewhere. But I agree with both of those. Well, I mean, Pittsburgh is obviously personal. Like it's been a known fact for a while here that they needed assets and they just haven't been getting them. So someone needs to stock up and just steal as many picks as they can, because it's just the pipeline has been very empty for a while. All right, Michael, start us off. Who's your pick to win the NHL draft lottery?
Can I say Pittsburgh again?
Sure.
Totally.
Like really, like if there's anything that's going to get Pittsburgh, I know Ryan's saying that next year is the year to win it, but for me, that would be the only sort of silver lining in what has just been an awful season for the Penguins. Buffalo would be another pick, but they've had how many chances at getting first or second overall picks in recent years? It almost feels like they're the new Edmonton Oilers here. So
eventually it turned around.
Eventually
it turned around. It went a lot better for Edmonton than it feels like it's going to go for Buffalo, even if they did.
There's no Connor McDavid this year, though.
No, they're still waiting for McDavid's pick. But yeah, no, it's a good one. And I mean, Pittsburgh, another factor I think would be awesome to see is that we've talked about kind of like what is the rest of Sidney Crosby's career going to be about. And obviously with the Penguins, it feels like it's going to be a lot of losing. They got a first round pick, his new, job to steward that guy into, replacing him and passing that torch. That'd be cool to watch. It'd be cool to see a player, under the wing of Sidney Crosby. What do you think, Ryan? Who do we got?
Well, I was trying to think about the lottery and how many times it actually goes the way that we predict.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a little off the board and say Seattle. The Kraken, I mean, they haven't been around for long, but they've never picked first overall. Matty Beniers was second.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an intriguing year because, the defenseman Matthew Schaefer right now is number one. But you could go a variety of different ways. Like it's a
Right.
pretty tight pack up top. But I feel like this isn't like an intellectual thing. This is more of a, things always go differently than we expect. So I'm going to go with the Kraken. And, it would be nice to get an injection of big name skill in that lineup because they don't have a ton of it.
What's the term that you guys use when Team Canada is like overthinking their rosters? And
Galaxy brain.
yeah, you were just going galaxy brain there with that
Yeah.
one, trying to think of the ways that it might actually secretly work out this way. All right, well, we'll see. Okay, how about this? You just mentioned it a little bit, but how valuable is a first round pick this year? What are we kind of looking at in terms of the tiers of that first round?
Yeah. So the way that I look at it right now is I would say there's like a top 5: Matthew Schaefer, Porter Martone, Michael Misa, James Higgins, and then I would put Anton Frondell in that category now as well. He's been very good of late. And then there's a bit of a drop off where you got some very interesting players, like a Victor Eklund, he's not big, but he's got a great motor. Roger McQueen, who is big but has been injured most of the season. And then, like a Keishon Aitchison, who is just an absolute terror of a blue liner. I love him so much. So I would say the next tier probably goes to the end of the lottery itself, right?
Okay.
Like those 16 non-playoff teams.
Okay.
I think, everybody could get a pretty decent pick. And then I feel it gets a little murkier. So I guess there's some justice in that. If you miss the playoffs, you're in line for a pretty good player, as long as you do your homework and get the guy with the potential you see fit.
Yeah, like I don't think teams are going to be trading like top 5 picks. So that's the good thing. Like if you're trading a first round pick at the deadline, it probably means that you're secure in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Now, I know first round picks with the salary cap era, obviously they're valuable, more valuable than ever. But as the salary cap goes up, the value decreases. Like you can fill out your roster now easier by just in free agency. So
Yeah.
I think there's probably going to be, and we saw this last year, there's more teams willing to part with picks. I don't know if that's because of that or just because everyone just wants to win. But it will be interesting. Like next year, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, is a little, it's top heavy, obviously, but is it deeper as well?
Well, that is interesting because, Gavin McKenna, obviously at the top, potential generational player, has already got 100 points in the WHL. But I will also say that age group this year, the under 17s at Hockey Canada's camp, they were really deep and very intriguing. So that group of 08s, I think it could be deep. It's tough to say because it's so early. Yeah, I know. 08s, right?
Oh,
It's the year they're born you're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely wild. I don't like to think about it.
Lord.
But there's definitely some good names out there that are very intriguing already. And I think that's a good sign.
All right, I'm going to put you both on the spot real quick. What do you think the deepest draft, the best draft that we've had in the last however many years was? What birth group?
Oh, I mean, we always talk about that, the Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaff.
Yeah.
Was that, I can't remember what year it was, but basically like everybody in the first round played.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Suter was there.
That's one of my favorite things to do after drafts and just to go back and look like a couple years later being like, what year was he? And you're like, whoa, that draft was great. You're like, oh my gosh, who are these guys? Like names that you literally never hear again. It's a testament to what you were talking about, Michael, with the value of first round picks, because drafting is so hard. If you can get, free agent players who are proven and build your team that way. I mean, there's more there's more security in that in some ways, but I think it's safe to say at least
14 draft is another one. I was just because I just think of it as the Brayden Point draft because I know he was like a 3rd round pick, but obviously that's the year where you get Aaron Ekblad goes 1, then you get Reinhart and then Draisaitl, but some late pick like Dylan Larkin was 15th overall. Like I said, Brayden Point was 3rd round. David Pasternak late in the 1st round, 25th overall. You had a Victor Arvidsson go in the 4th round. it might not have been as star-studded as that other draft that Ryan's talking about, where basically the entire first round went to the Hall of Fame. But Devontae's 4th-round pick in that year as well.
Yeah, there's some big names sprinkled throughout that. So I would say it's definitely a good draft in terms of balance. All right, well, for all the hockey players out there, if you want to be drafted one day or if you miss your chance, that's all right. You can still get a pro level stick without having to pay a fortune by checking out stix.com. That's STIX.com. So make sure you go on there and check it out. Okay, boys, rapid fire. We're starting off with a yay or nay. The Edmonton Oilers made a little move and claimed defenseman Travis Dermott off waivers from Minnesota. Yay or nay?
I'm a yay on that.
Yay?
Yeah. Yeah, he goes way back. He goes way back to Erie with Connor McDavid.
Yep.
They need some options back there. He can get the puck up the ice. Why not?
It's kind of a milquetoast yay for me. They need help on defense. So, like Ryan mentioned, they've got familiarity there.
It's like that, woohoo, yay, but like no real affect. Okay, right. Perfect. All right, well, how about this? Would you rather be running the Canucks or the Flames right now?
Calgary all the way.
Yeah.
Get me out of that fire that is Vancouver.
The media nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. And it's tough because Vancouver obviously has the higher element players, but it just feels like the vibes in Calgary are so much better. And it just feels like there's more, weirdly, there's more promise in Calgary because they're still on their way up. Whereas Vancouver, it's like, I don't know what's going on.
Nobody does. All right. How about this over under? We talked about the NHL Stadium Series game this weekend between Detroit and Columbus taking place in Ohio Stadium, home of the OSU football team. Capacity of 780,000 people. So the NHL is reporting this game is tracking to have over 90,000 fans in attendance, which would be awesome. But do we think they go over or under? The biggest game other than that would have been the one that was held in Michigan. So what do we think? 90,000.
I'm going over. Columbus is such an underrated market. I don't even know if it's underrated. It just feels like as a hockey market, it's a bit underrated. Just a great sports market. And then you get like Michigan fans who are going to drive down as well.
Totally.
As long as the weather's fine, they're going to go well over.
It looks like it's tracking to be pretty typical winter day, not going to be raining or anything too nasty. So that could definitely help.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to go over as well because as we talked about earlier in the program, this game matters.
Yeah.
Like there are 2 points on the line between Detroit and Columbus, and those are going to be a crucial 2 points. So I think you're going to see the fans come out, and there's going to be a lot of good hype around this game.
I like it too. And especially like setting it between the football, right? Like 2 teams that have really big football programs as well to be having this game. Like there's going to be people that are just stoked to go because that's an awesome atmosphere and the stadium's going to be rocking. All right, I like it. I'll go over as well. Okay, Brayden and Luke Schenn became the 8th pair of brothers to each hit 1,000 NHL games milestone. So name another pair who reached this achievement that you guys think is your favorite of all time.
I'm going to go with the Stalls. Eric and Jordan Stahl. You could even throw Mark Stahl. I don't know if I don't even know if they reached 1,000 because I always try to. Okay.
The trifecta.
Fresh for rapid fire. Try not to cheat. But yeah, like, the Stahl family, obviously Jared Stahl didn't quite achieve the same heights as his other 3 brothers, but something was brewing on that Thunder Bay farm.
Yeah, it is. Like, what was in the water up there? What do you think, Ryan?
I'll go with the Sutters. They didn't all do it, but I think Ron and Brent did it. A lot of them were kind of in the 700-800 range, but a couple of the Sutter brothers went over 1,000. And I would say cumulatively, because there's so many of them, they probably had a ton of games. But at least 2 of them, I did look it up. At least 2 of the Sutters eclipsed 1,000 games.
Can you name them all?
Yeah.
All the Sutters? Yeah. Brent, Brian, Dwayne, Rich, Ron,
Daryl.
There
you go.
Yes. Amazing.
Good job, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one would be like a great trivia question. Be like, which family in the NHL has the most games ever? That have to be.
I use them for Puck Doku a lot.
There you go. All right. Well, speaking of brothers, the Tkachuk brothers are on their media tour. So they went on the Kelce brothers podcast this week, and it got some people thinking, should the Tkachuks have their own podcast? And would you listen?
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
Hockey needs as much personality as possible, and good on the Tkachuks for really kind of taking advantage of this. They could have been like, all right, tournament's over, back to the NHL grind. But the fact that they are taking time out of their schedules, I know, they're dealing with injuries too, but that's even more so a reason like not to be doing some media avails. So I would love to see a Tkachuk brother podcast. I'm trying to think like who else would be good podcast hosts. I know Jack Hughes. He did some sort of like live Instagram stuff over the summer that was getting some play as well, or maybe I'm confusing him with Macklin Celebrini. But anyway, there should be more NHLers thinking this way.
Yeah. No, I agree. Not only should the Tkachuk brothers have a podcast, but like they could just have family members as guests. And it would be amazing. It's like Tom Fitzgerald's on this week, or like Kevin Hayes is on this week, or like, Keith Tkachuk's on this week. And it would be incredibly entertaining because they would just tell stories about like, remember when so-and-so fought at this barbecue, or like, remember when, Matthew pushed you through the wall of the basement, or, remember when we had a boxing tournament?
A reality show would be great.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wait.
Keeping up with the Canucks.
There you go.
Call TLC right now, because that would absolutely get views. And again, and not to rip on some hockey guys out there, but listen, like some players are just a little bit boring, right? And they not that they take it too seriously. We love the commitment, but it is kind of nice to see players that are elite and also have the extracurriculars and have the personality and are willing to do stuff like this, because a lot of guys have to be forced into it, don't want to have fun with it, and the Tkachuks are full-blown embracing it. My friend is the PR director for the Panthers, and anytime she needs Matthew to do something, he's on it. He says yes to everything that she needs, and I just have a lot of appreciation for that from a high-level player. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth with some of these dudes just to get a sliver of personality out of some of them. Awesome. Well, yeah, agreed. We need a Tkachuk TV show, podcast. We want it all. It would be great. That does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. Make sure to get ready for next week, guys. Join us, because all week long we will be keeping you up to date with what's going on with the trade deadline, accumulating in a very exciting Friday live stream for our show. So make sure that you are watching and paying attention. We've got you covered. For Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy, I'm Katie Gaus. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next week.